Welcome to B-Side Stories. Today we're looking at 4 albums that sparked controversy for completely different reasons. From political clashes, to government pushback, to cultural revolutions. Let's begin. In 1968, amidst Brazil's turbulent political climate, Caetano Veloso released his self-titled album. This was more than a collection of songs. It was a musical manifesto, an album that had a reflection of hope, rebellion, and the possibilities of artistic freedom in a dark time in Brazil's history. Each song captured the spirit of Tropicalia, a movement that merged Western psychedelia, avant-garde experimentation, and social critique, challenging the very structures of Brazilian society. To understand the stakes, we must look back to 1964, when a military coup overthrew Brazil's democracy. Over the next years, censorship, repression, and political persecution became a daily reality. Artists, students, and activists struggled to preserve freedom and culture. Veloso's self-titled album emerged as a bold artistic statement in this climate. It was daring, poetic, and unafraid. In October of 1968, Veloso and fellow Tropicalia musician Gilberto Gil performed a concert in Rio de Janeiro under a banner reading, "Be marginal, be a hero." And later that year, the military issued Institutional Act No. 5, which suspended court repercussions, giving authorities sweeping power to censor and arrest at will. Veloso and Gil were arrested quickly without formal charges. Inside the prison, Caetano and Gil found themselves in a strange, punishing limbo. They were often locked in isolation, left for long stretches with no information about why they were there or when they would be released. Guards withheld food and water for long periods to soften them. Caetano later said, "The worst part was the uncertainty, not knowing if each day would be the day that disappeared forever." At one point, soldiers forced Caetano to shave his head at gunpoint, a symbolic humiliation meant to strip away identity and pride. After the Tropicalia movement, they became, in the eyes of the dictatorship, the most serious enemies of the state. After months of pressure, interrogations, and confinement, the military finally realized that keeping Caetano and Gil locked up was becoming a liability. Their disappearance was drawing international attention, and Brazil risked turning 2 young musicians into global martyrs. So the regime offered them a compromise: freedom, but only if they asked to leave the country. They were escorted to the airport, still unsure of their fate. And just like that, their home became a place they could no longer remain, and effectively cut off from everything they had built. Exiled in London, they arrived disoriented, traumatized, and uncertain of what comes next. But in London, far from home, something remarkable happened. Isolation slowly turned into reinvention. Caetano recorded 2 albums during his exile, and one of them, Transa, would become one of his most celebrated works, a sonic diary of resilience, fear, and longing for his home country. These albums prove that the creative fire ignited in 1968 still endured, even far from home.
You don't know me, bet you'll never get to know me.
Veloso and Gil returned to Brazil in 1972, welcomed back after years of forced exile in London. The political climate had already shifted. While the military was still watching closely, they allowed the musicians to come home, recognizing that their international fame and influence could no longer be ignored. Through imprisonment, torture, exile, and political pressure, one bond endured: the friendship of Caetano Veloso and Gilberto Gil. They still perform shows together to this day. Together, they shaped a movement, faced danger, and remained side by side through Brazil's darkest times. It's a story about friendship, resilience, and the courage to create, even when your freedoms are at stake. In 1985, the Dead Kennedys released their third studio album, Frankenchrist. Inside, a limited number of copies was a poster by Swiss artist H.R. Geiger, a biomechanical, surreal, and extremely explicit piece of art. The band even put a warning label on the album sleeve, but that didn't matter. The controversy ignited when a woman filed a complaint after her 14-year-old daughter bought the album, poster included, for her younger brother. This complaint escalated to the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office, and they charged Biafra and several others under California Penal Code 313.1, distributing harmful matter to minors. If convicted for this crime, they would be facing fines and potentially prison. To understand how things escalated from a complaint to a criminal case, you have to look at America in the mid-80s. By 1985, the Dead Kennedys weren't just a punk band. They were a political provocation. They attacked corruption, police brutality, American imperialism, fascism, and the Reagan-era politics directly in their music.
To Diane, banker, butt liquor, Margaret Thatcher Feinstein. Curtis, the dragon lady with no fucking heart.
This was at the height of music censorship moral panic led by PMRC, founded by Tipper Gore and a group of politically connected Washington wives. They claimed rock, punk, and metal were corrupting the youth. They pushed for warning labels, government oversight, and public shaming. But they weren't unopposed. Frank Zappa, Dee Snider, and even John Denver testified in Congress defending artistic freedom.
I'm a parent. I've got 4 children. 2 of them are here. I want them to grow up in a country where they can think what they want to think, be what they want to be, and not what somebody's wife or somebody in government makes them be. I don't want to have that, and I don't think you do either.
In this climate, anything that was loud, political, or subversive became an easy target for them. And the Dead Kennedys, well, they were all 3. And then things escalated in a way almost no band experiences. According to Jello Biafra himself, he woke up to 9 police officers breaking into his apartment.
9 cops were busy tearing my whole flat to pieces. I felt like it was a DEA drug raid or something. I found out that me and 4 other people were all charged by the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office with 1 count each of distributing harmful matter to minors.
Police also raided Alternative Tentacles, the band's independent label. The legal battle was grueling. Records were seized from stores, court appearances, mounting fees, and nationwide media attention. The trial became a national spectacle. Prosecutors painted the Dead Kennedys as corrupting America's youth. Inside the courtroom, the Geiger poster was displayed as evidence. The prosecution insisted the poster was obscene. The defense argued it needed to be judged in the context of the album's themes: politics, satire, and art.
Guilty by association?
Yes, in other words, guilt by association to the point where people won't want to associate to create good art. They'll be scared.
The defense countered with art experts, political scholars, and testimony about the purpose of punk and social critique. But Jello believed something bigger was happening. He later called the case politically motivated, with outside forces pushing for a conviction.
The prosecutor admitted to the LA Weekly about a year ago that they did have other prospective rock prosecutions they were looking at and chose us out of the pile. It's not as though we were an isolated anomaly. It's as though they were fishing.
Journalists reported on every hearing, every argument, every delay, and each week legal fees piled up, draining Alternative Tentacles, an independent label with no major label resources. And the band didn't have much money left after the controversy provoked record stores to pull their albums from the shelves. Finally, after months of battles, the jury deadlocked 7-5 in favor of acquittal, and the judge dismissed the case. Frankenchrist didn't incite violence, but it showed how the album could spark legal, cultural, and political battles. The stress of the trial contributed to the band's unraveling, but their influence endured. A fearless record, a First Amendment flashpoint, and a reminder that punk was never about the music. It was about speaking the truth to power, even when authorities wanted you silenced.
It might have put this artist in danger from our government. So much so that even his label that he was signed with at one point with this Sleeping with the Enemy album dropped him because they couldn't hold the pressure.
If you've never heard of Paris, then you're about to discover one of the most politically explosive stories in hip-hop history. Paris came up in the Bay Area in the late 80s, heavily influenced by Public Enemy, Ice-T, and the rising wave of politically conscious rap music. From the start, Paris wasn't chasing the radio hits. He was militant, sharp, and completely uncompromising. His music confronted systematic racism and state power head-on, often in ways designed to provoke and unsettle. To understand why his next album caused so much fear, you have to look at where hip-hop was in 1990. The genre had gone mainstream, with Vanilla Ice, MC Hammer, huge, clean, radio-friendly hits. And in that same year, Paris dropped The Devil Made Me Do It, his debut album. It was full of political messages, police critiques, and militant black empowerment. It was so controversial at its time that Tommy Boy Records immediately dropped him soon after its release, forcing him to go sign with Warner Records soon after. The album earned him underground respect, especially through his peers, but it did not earn him the spotlight that he deserved. But this guy had the flow of Rakim, the political firepower of Public Enemy, and the edge of NWA. But unlike those three, he was still underground, respected and influential, but with none of the industry support. But now let's go to 1992. Just 2 years later, Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer were on their way out, and G-Funk was the new sound that was blowing up. And in this same year, Paris dropped his sophomore album, Sleeping with the Enemy. The cover didn't hint. It stated exactly what kind of a political territory Paris was stepping into. Sleeping with the Enemy took Paris's political voice even further than his debut. Tracks like Coffee, Donuts, and Death, Make Way for a Panther, and especially the most controversial track number 5, Bush Killer.
I wanna see his motherfucking brains hanging. Another level when it's me and Devil's gang banging. So don't be
Bush Killer drew the most attention with its fantasy of political assassination. Paris defended it as exaggerated political commentary, but to the executives and the media, he looked like a liability. Warner Records stepped back immediately and refused to support it. So Paris had to go independent and start his own label, Scarface Records, and he handled the release instead. He was already banned before he could get off the ground. The album met immediate controversy. Around this time, Paris started noticing unmarked vans parked outside of his home, and it was even reported that the CIA opened a file observing Paris's behavior, labeling him as a potential threat to the government. Whether those claims are real, surveillance, or just paranoia from the era, they show how threatening this album felt to people in power. Even with all that, it sold thousands independently. Paris reported noticing surveillance for the next decade or so, and he didn't really stop with his political messaging. Every album he released afterwards went harder and harder, but this was the one that could have been a major label release to fit in with 1992's scene, but unfortunately Warner was too scared and saw him as a liability to release the album. But in the underground and among politically conscious artists, he earned a lasting respect. His refusal to compromise and his willingness to confront power bluntly makes Sleeping with the Enemy one of the boldest political albums in hip-hop history. It didn't just provoke some controversy, it shows what happens when an artist refuses to soften the truth. and the consequences can get dangerous. February 1977. 1,000 soldiers surround a compound in Lagos, Nigeria. They cut the fence, storm through with rifles. Their target? A musician. His crime? A song. Inside Kalakuta Republic, Fela Kuti, the man who created Afrobeat, who turned music into warfare, was about to pay the price for his most dangerous album yet, Zombie. By the time the smoke clears, his mother will be dying, his studio will be ash, and Fela? He'll carry her coffin directly to the military barracks and dare them to do it again. This is the story of Fela Kuti, Zombie. To understand why Nigeria's military wanted Fela Kuti dead, you have to understand what he built. Born in 1938 to a family of rebels, his mother Funmilayo was a fierce anti-colonial activist. Fela studied music in London, then came home and invented something new, Afrobeat, a mix of jazz, funk, highlife, and Yoruba rhythms merged into something hypnotic and unmistakably political. But Fela wasn't just making music. He declared his compound an independent republic, Kalakuta Republic, outside Nigeria's laws. He married 27 women in a single ceremony. He openly smoked marijuana and called out government corruption by name. In the mid-1970s, Nigeria was lurching from coup to coup, and Fela had become the most dangerous voice in the country. But then came Zombie. The title track does something brilliant. It mocks Nigerian soldiers as mindless zombies who can't think for themselves.
Zombie no go unless you tell him to go. Zombie no go stop unless you tell him to stop.
This wasn't abstract protest music. This was a direct attack on the military's pride, set to a rhythm people couldn't stop dancing to. The album became massive, which meant every soldier in Nigeria knew they were being called brainless puppets. The regime could not ignore this. So on February 18th, 1977, the attack begins at dawn. Around 1,000 soldiers encircle Kalakuta Republic. They storm the compound, beating anyone they can find. Women were dragged away and assaulted. Fela is severely beaten. They even took his 78-year-old mother and threw her from a second-story window. And then they burned it all. The studio, the instruments, the master tapes, everything. Everything that Fela built went up in flames. Funmilayo's injuries from the fall would kill her months later. At her funeral, Fela did something unprecedented. He carried her coffin to Dodon Barracks, the military headquarters, and left it at their gate.
Body. In this whole politics in Africa, only two people have walked on the streets to follow people to where they are going. Nkrumah and my mother. What are you talking about? All this nonsense that you have hanging around here, they sit down in cars, man. This government threw my mother out of window, Mrs. Funmilayo Anikulapo Kuti, who fought her blood for this country on the streets.
Fela's response wasn't silent. It was 2 more albums, Unknown Soldier and Coffin for the Head of State, documenting everything they had done, naming the crime, refusing to let Nigeria forget.
Them throw my mother out of from
money. Them kill many students. Them burn many houses. Them burn my house too. Kill my mama. So I carry the coffin.
He changed his middle name to Enekulapo, he who carries death in his pouch. He founded a political party. He kept performing, kept getting arrested, but kept speaking. The military beat him, jailed him, raided him again, and Fela kept making music until he died in 1997. And over 1 million people honored him at his funeral. Zombie wasn't just controversial, it proved that sometimes a groove can be more dangerous than a gun, and that no amount of violence can silence a song people refuse to stop singing. Alright, well, if you made it to this part of the video, well, thank you so much for watching. This is my first video ever. My first time trying to make a script, to narrate, and to edit it all together. And it's been a process, but I really enjoyed making these videos, and I really want to make more videos in the future about topics that I find cool. So if you like what you see here, subscribe, support the channel. That would be great. And thank you for watching.